Welcome to another video. In today's video, we're going to do a 6-month review on my 2023 Dynamax Isata 5. Now, I'm a little late to the party because I have many other videos that I've already shot and haven't posted, but I do get quite a few emails on people asking what my thoughts on this Dynamax, so I might as well do this 6-month review, and I think it's a fair assessment. You know, we have about 12,000 miles on it, so here's my opinion right away. The Ram chassis, I'll stick still with my original, as in this thing rides and handles great. I love it. We do have the Kelderman air ride in the front, and I wish I had it in the back, but I'm torn on either adding the air ride in the back or tearing the entire system out and putting in the liquid springs, but you know, I don't have enough complaints to make that change right now, so that's something you may want to contemplate in the future. But let's jump right on here. The Truma water heater, had never had any issues with this in the prior RV or this RV. The storage bays here are pretty nice, but I do have a couple of gripes on them. Is the actual shock, they put this on the bottom, and that actually interferes with a lot of items being moved in and out. And what you'll notice is some RV manufacturers actually put the shock up on top, which I think would be much better. And we'll jump in the next bay and I'll show you why. But jumping over to this bay here, as you'll see here. So when this door shuts, this piece here goes way inside. You can see where it's actually marring up this storage. But same thing as if you want to tote anything out, you'll end up hitting this arm. And I think it'd be much better if it was up on top like this. The major problem, I have two major problems with these bays. So if you really look here, it's going to be hard with these lights on, but you see that water coming down here? Let me lift up my carpet here. So massive amounts of water comes in through here, and that's actually through the two screw holes in this light fixture, as well as this camera will not pick up. Dynamax, for whatever reason, they actually don't seal down here or up here. So I've done all my seals down here already. I don't know if I'll show you a video on this, but Dynamax forgot, and this is not the only RV. I've seen this on many of their models, but they do not seal the plastic compartments at all in this area or the vertical pieces. So I get a lot of water intrusion here. And the second part is in these lights. If you look on the back side, it's actually those screw holes there from the lights. So the water from the tires kick in and go through those screws, as well as all the areas where they don't have any caulking. So they definitely need to make that change. And then the other biggest problem I have with this is not the plastic compartments themselves or the material. I've had plenty of plastic compartments, but if you really look here, these compartments, this camera probably won't do it justice, but they sag like crazy. There's a big bow in it. And these items here, the weight of these items are exactly what I had in my Winnebago, and I've never had that issue. But that's a common complaint. I think a lot of people end up putting like 3/4 inch plywood on the inside. But Dynamax definitely has to make some type of fix there. They either need to put some type of metal support on the bottom or put some type of plywood on the inside, because bowing like this, I've actually had to remove a lot of items from inside this compartment because they sag so bad, and there's only 3 rivets that hold that whole compartment in. So I was afraid that whole compartment would fall down. And you'll see, I have the same problem in this back compartment here. You see how you see this pools of water, and that's all coming in either through the screws or the caulking. Like I said, I've only caulked this part here. I haven't caulked any of the vertical parts, but that's a major flaw in these Dynamaxes. Now the other item that I don't like is this battery compartment. Now if you've ever done any kind of cold weather camping, but here we just came back from a trip, and you can see how bad this battery compartment is. These lithium batteries are pretty expensive, and the other issue that there is if you do any type of cold weather camping, the lithium, these are self-heating lithiums. Well, the problem with self-heating is just using the self-heating function, they draw a lot of power, so the batteries discharge really quick. And this compartment is not sealed at all. So I'm not sure if I'll do a total different video, but we'll definitely end up sealing this whole thing, especially doing some winter camping. So I need the area to keep the elements out and obviously protect these batteries. But the other bad thing is these batteries are in a terrible location. You know, the inverter charger is about 20 feet up or forward, and that's a very far distance for the battery to be from the inverter charger. So I don't know why they came up with this engineering, but if I had to do it again, they should place these batteries way up in the front compartment on the other side by the inverter. So let's jump to the other side. Well, jumping over onto this side, I don't have much to really talk about here. The major item that I have, and I'm going to do a total different video, is the plumbing system. The plumbing system on this is absolutely atrocious. You'll see these hoses here, and I made some modifications to this, but I plan on doing a future video where we end up ripping out all this plumbing and redoing it. And I've had to do that on my Winnebago as well. But these hoses are absolutely terrible because they are using these hoses with PEX fittings and PEX clamps that are not compatible with each other. And I can't believe a major manufacturer like Forest River and Winnebago in my previous RV have something like this. Like I mentioned, I will definitely do a complete different video on this. But let's jump on over here. One major problem I have over here is the diesel generator. So this generator, the good thing is I have a lot of experience on this exact model, and you can see it has about 32 hours on it. And I don't use the generator much, as in I mostly use it as an exercise it and only charge the batteries when I need to. But this generator is very hard to start, especially in cold weather. And like I mentioned, one of my previous RVs had this exact same model, and I've never had that issue before. Well, I found the fix for it, but I'll do a total separate video on this. So if your RV with the Onan Quiet Diesel 8000 or the 3200 for those Sprinter van models, and I'm specifically talking the diesel generators, not the gas or the propane. If you have a hard start problem in the cold weather, don't let anyone convince you that it's because it's a diesel and it's hard to start. There's definitely an issue with those, and some relatively easy fixes and some other ones that are more complicated, but they should start on that first turn, just like all other generators. So if you're having that problem, don't give up on it. Let's jump into this next compartment here. This is where I mentioned the inverter. So the inverter charger sits way up here by the front of the RV. And you electronic gurus know that anytime you have an inverter charger or inverter, or in this circumstance, I also have my two solar charge controllers, they should be literally right by the battery. So if you see the scale of things, the battery is way down on the back end, all the way on the other side. And I don't know why they did that on this model. I think they'd be much better off putting the batteries right here. There's plenty of room for the batteries, and there'll be a very short distance from the inverter, and of course much less wiring on that really heavy gauge wiring. So in my opinion, it's actually much less expensive to put the batteries here and do the wire runs here, and of course it will function better with less voltage drop. But that's my 2 cents. I don't know why they did that, but if they do it in the future, they should definitely put the batteries in this compartment here. And you know, it's underneath the slide, so I don't access this very often. So this part of the slide, you could actually move all of this stuff into where that battery compartment is in the back. So you could basically do a flip and it'd be a pretty easy setup. So you can see my 950 watts of factory solar here. That 950 watts performs worse than the 600 watts I had on my Winnebago. So I think factory wise, you know, it's definitely the install issue. I'll do a total separate video on that, but you'll have to stick around on why I think the factory solar is definitely not worth it. Well, that's really it for the outside. I don't have much else to go over on the outside, so let's jump on back to the inside and wrap up this video. Alright, jumping on the inside here, let me do a panoramic view here. And I think most people are going to wonder, or they ask me, would you buy it again? And boy, that's a tough question to answer. Well, you will have to wait until the end of the video and I'll give you my opinion on whether I would buy this again. But let me go over some of the items that we like, don't like, as well as there's many items I have fixed here already and a few items that I have not fixed. So let me go over this, starting with this top cab. Now the roominess of the cab, absolutely love. Now if you don't need this whole entire cab here, yes, it's going to be a waste of space, but you can obviously use it as storage. The thing I don't like about this upper cab is it's actually much colder than what our Winnebago was, and I'm really surprised by that because this is the Xplorer package, so they're supposed to have better insulation and etc, etc. And what we found is that that back wall in this front area here gets extremely cold, and I've opened that outlet up before, and inside the cavity it's a pretty big void in there. There's only a little bit of insulation in there, which I'm surprised. I think Dynamax could definitely do a better job of insulating that area inside, but we also carried it across here, and it has a little bit due to the windows, but the actual walls, the way Dynamax build these walls are the aluminum framing, they don't have an actual thermal break on the inside or the outside on that aluminum framing. So it transfers that heat and cold quite a bit through that aluminum framing. And you can see that from the condensation from the inside. I think Winnebago, they use the thinner aluminum framing and they put another layer of foam insulation on the inside, or they notched it out. I don't know what the best way to describe it, but they actually had a thermal break on the inside, even though it was a thinner wall. So that's definitely an area that I did not like. Jumping to this power recliner. Now, at first, I absolutely thought this was really cool. You know, had its heated seats, massager, and so on. And our family is not really a lazy boy type of chair user, so we actually ended up not liking this in the long run. If we had to do it again, you know, the original non-option is basically a tri-fold couch that would turn into a bed. I would rather take that than this, especially this is an option. I believe they charge about $3,600 to put this power heated massage chair in there. Again, great for marketing, but not my cup of tea. I think instead maybe I would put like a J lounge in there. It'd be smaller, but you could turn it into a bed really easy for a kid. But that's my opinion. You know, if you're really into lazy boy chairs, this may be down your alley. The kitchen ended up being exactly what we thought. You know, the stove was way too big, not enough counter space. If I had to critique this stove, you know, it has 3 burners, and these 3 burners are absolutely useless, as in you can't even fit 3 pans in there because they end up hitting each other. They're not spaced really good. Even using 2 of them, they're not spaced out very good. They'd definitely be better off using a proper 2-burner stove here, whether it's induction or propane, but running it in this direction and leaving a little bit more counter space in between to do some food prep. But again, my opinion, I've seen this stove on many different RVs, but a 3-burner stove, unless if you're using some really small pans, it's hard to use all 3 at the same time. And you know, I don't think many people end up camping with using 3 burners at the same time. So that's my opinion. Over here, this is the Truma water heater controls. Now 2023 and older, Dynamax actually didn't even install these for you. They stuck them in a drawer. Pretty upsetting because, you know, otherwise you would have to turn the water heater on and off from the outside. And here, putting in this controls, you know, you have to drill a hole in the cabinet. Wasn't a big deal for me, but running the wires back in through the Truma, that was actually a pain in the butt. Not very fun for an end user to do, but I heard in 2024 they decided they're going to start putting those back in. And I've never heard that from any other manufacturer, so I don't know why they did that. Now, jumping over to the rest of the kitchen, turned out exactly what we thought. The residential refrigerator, we do like it. It's quite a bit large size. You know, the only drawback, of course, is it takes quite a bit of power, so a 12-volt refrigerator would be much better, I think, and I kind of see that as the future. I pretty much see that 12-volt refrigerator in every manufacturer's lineup, so I think that's what Dynamax is starting to do in here in the future as well. And then this dinette, no qualms on this dinette. We do like this dinette. The only qualms, if I had one, was on the upper cabinets here, or the lack of. There are no cabinets on top of this dinette, and traditional dinettes, you know, they usually have that storage above, and we only have this little storage here. And comparing it to that small Winnebago we had, It's actually less storage in here than that smaller RV we had. So that's a little bit shocking, but I don't see any reason why they couldn't put that upper cabinet here. Here's an area I forgot to mention, is the slide out system. So we have the bedroom slide and the living room slide. And then you can operate that on the control pad as well. But this slide out system is absolutely horrible. Every time you use it, or every time I use it, I pretty much have anxiety that the slide will quit working. And it has happened to us numerous times. I haven't figured out why. I think it's some type of 12-volt voltage situation. But when you're running the slide outs, sometimes they'll just quit on you completely. Or before you even run the slide outs out, sometimes I would stop and park and try to put the slide outs out. And one slide would work, and then the other one would just not work at all, would not react. And what you have to do is you have to take these slide controllers out and go through a total reset procedure and adjust your limit stops in and out. And what I discovered along the way is, yes, it's cool to have those limit stops, but I thought this was a fancier controls. But in the end, this has ended up being the cheaper controls. The one with the switch that just has, we'll call it in and out, that's an automatic control, as in the controller. When you bring the slide out in, you just hold the button in for longer or out, and it basically does a self-calibration each and every time. You cannot do that with these. Bringing it in, once it hits that limit stop, it just quits. So absolutely horrible slide system. Like I said, I get slide anxiety each time I have to end up using that. So I don't know how long Dynamax has ended up using that, but I've never had an issue with any other slide system, but that one is absolutely horrible. I may end up switching out the controllers in the future. You know, it's a pain in the butt. It doesn't happen that often, but it is still a pain in the butt. And this equalizer leveling system, now this one I don't like as much. So this controller, if you see, it looks all the same, but it doesn't have that Bluetooth symbol. And this one is tied into the Firefly system, which is tied into the Bluetooth system. But if you're using the Firefly with your phone and trying to use this equalizer system, absolutely horrible. There's a very long delay. I mean, we're talking like 4 or 5 second delay. So it's very hard to manually level through your app. So that's something they should definitely change to, because this auto leveling is practically useless, as you know, if you have one of these equalizer systems. So manually using it through your phone app is much more preferred, but through that Firefly, it doesn't work out so well. Okay, and jumping on to the propane furnace. Now, I've done separate videos on this, on how horrible this propane furnace. Now, that's something that Dynamax should definitely take care of from the factory. I can't believe how poorly they ran it, but I think this gives them an opportunity. They can make it better. But what I didn't touch on is I have the same problem in the bathroom. In the bathroom, I thought I was okay, but my original propane furnace came out through that back area here, and it would mostly blow on the door. So the rest of the bathroom would stay really cold and just get hot in that concentrated area. So what I did was I removed it. I didn't finish the job yet, but I ran a whole new ducting and ran it over here. I wish I could have put a bigger outlet here. So this is the same 2-inch outlet that was moved from there to here, but I couldn't put a 4-inch outlet here because there's too many obstructions behind this false panel here. That's where the actual outside TV is. So the biggest heater vent I could put in here was that 2-inch vent, which is a little bit small for this bathroom. And then here's an area I haven't fixed yet, but if you look here, you see that nice big crack here. I did start seeing signs of this crack when I bought it originally, and it was very small, but I knew it was going to get worse over time. But the biggest gripe I have is the actual product that they use. This stuff is very brittle, and if you look at it, you can see here, very brittle and very plasticky. So I'm going to do a whole separate video on how to fix this, but the physical caulking that they used, I don't know what product they used exactly, but very hard stuff. It doesn't have very much elastomeric properties, which means it's going to stretch. So I have that problem here. And then if you really look over in the shower area here, you can see how all that cracking is here and here. And we'll go back to the front, but you can see it here. But it really doesn't have much to do with the gap itself. It's the actual product. This product is just really hard and really brittle. So of course, things naturally contract and expand. And whatever product they use, it just couldn't tolerate that. And I do have a product that I use that will withstand this much better than what they used. Like I mentioned, I'll do a total separate video on it, but you can see over here, I have the same issue. Is if you look at the kitchen area here, you can see this crack here, but this product here, it's like hard as a rock. So I don't know what they use, but it just doesn't give it a chance to expand and contract with all the movements. And it's throughout the whole RV. So I've seen this problem on other RVs as well, but it really comes down to product choices. You know, some products are going to work better than others, but whatever they used here, it's pretty much a fail throughout the RV, which leads to the fit and finish. You know, what do you think of the fit and finish? Well, at first when I got it, I'm like, oh, I think it's a little bit better, but now that I've lived with it for long enough, I would say it sits on the average side, maybe a little bit better. Like I mentioned originally, when I had that new RV love going on, of course I thought everything was better. But now that we've had it for long enough, we can definitely see that the fit and finish is average. If you look at the big seams they have in between, you know, two joints, all the nail holes that they have, they didn't even use the correct color filling. And let's go over a couple other areas where I have the fit and finish. If you look at Dynamax here, where the wall panels hit the ceiling, I've never seen this before, but they use this little ugly little trim here throughout, except the areas like if you look back there, they have crown molding, but if you go around, you can see how bad that crown molding job is. But if you go around to this side of the bathroom, you see they're using this trim here. Most of the other RVs I've seen, the panels usually run all the way up and there's that thin line of some type of urethane caulking, but they didn't do that here. But if you go over here, you can see here, the panel goes all the way up and they use some type of caulking here, as well as here. But going to this side here, now you see the difference. And the gripe I have with it, this whole wall panel system here is, let's look over here. If you look here, I haven't done a complete repair on it. I repaired the wall, but I did have to get some new seam tape. Once I get that, I'll put a new layer of tape on here. But this whole wall ended up popping out. I'll put a clip in here on what it looked like, but I made a fix on it, and there'll be a complete different video on this. Wow, look at that wall in my bedroom. Have never seen a wall do that before. But now you've seen that panel pop out, what you'll see here is, so this camera is not really going to pick it up, but there's a big bulge in this wall. And that bulge is constantly fighting to pop out of here. And I have the same problem in the bathroom. And I think this is eventually going to happen. But if you look at the floor, you see how that panel doesn't follow that floor line? That's because there's a giant bulge in this wall here. And if you see where the panels come together, this seam tape you can see here, this panel is ready to just basically pop out of here, just like the other side. So I'm prepared to make this fix, but this is definitely a fit and finish issue. All right, and here I have another area here, these doors here. So I've already made the fix on this whole edge of this door here, as well as this side here. All that door started peeling. And I put some, I call it some type of stain sealer on here, which makes it much better. But again, that's definitely a fit and finish issue. So going back to this closet area here, you'll see I have these two big closet doors here with these giant mirrors. Not a fan of these big mirrors, but the bigger issue is the actual function. So when this slide out is in, you cannot get back to that closet at all. So you can imagine this door here, and that's the slide out here. When that slide out comes in, you know, that ends up coming all the way out here. So you can't get to this door or open this door. And I think if I had to make a change or had recommend a change that the factory could make, is they should make these basically sliding doors. So they slide into each other. So if the slide is in and you could eventually crawl back here, you could just basically slide the doors and still get at the access inside the closets. But again, that's just my opinion. I know they've been doing this for a long time, so some people must like it, but I don't know how they could with the function of, there's many situations where you just cannot have these slide out. And I think it'd just be better if we had easier access back here. The other areas I had on the fit and finish is in the bedroom. Now with the slide out here, I've already made the repair, but underneath my slide out, before, I had daylight throughout the whole underneath the slide. And that slide out seal was installed pretty poorly or just not tall enough. And I had to put a whole new slide out seal in there to fix that. The same thing over here is, if you really look, this roller here is not even touching the slide out. And that's because this entire panel here is sunken in. When they installed this, we'll call it support bracket underneath, it's just not even supported down there. So I will have to take all this out and end up redoing this. But I did install new slide out seals. I think I ended up recarpeting all this. This carpet was falling off. And the areas I haven't fixed yet is the actual support underneath here. So there's proper support on these slide out rollers. Look at that. I can stick my whole finger in between the roller and the bottom of the slide out. But that's pretty poor fit and finish and quality control on this RV. And then lastly, in this bedroom area, if I could make a change, would be this folding bed like this. It's not the folding mattress itself that bothers me. It's when you bring the slide out in. Now, if you've seen one of my original tour videos, you know that this slide out, when it comes in, this mattress ends up coming all the way to this back wall. So you have to basically scale over this to get back to the closet, which is pretty challenging even for a fit person. So I think ideally, what I would like to see is a lot of the new floor plans you see where the bed articulates or the head articulates back up. I couldn't really do that on this RV because, the width in between the mattress, it's just way too tight compared to the side walls. But it would be better if the head of the bed could fold up like this, and the bottom part here would just be a standard mattress where you wouldn't have to fold it up like this. Then it'd be much easier. Basically, you'll be looking at, the thickness of the mattress, and you can crawl over to the other side much easier. But I think that's a pretty simple fix Dynamax could do to incorporate into their RVs. That pretty much wraps up my opinions, and I hope some of these, maybe the manufacturer could incorporate some of these changes. But overall, even with the other griping, we do like the RV overall. Otherwise, we wouldn't have ended up in this model. But if I had to do it all over again and had the time, I think I would skip the Xplorer package. The value for the Xplorer package, it has 950 watts of solar on the roof, and that thing performs worse than my 600 watts I had on the Winnebago. I did want these dual pane windows, so I would get that option. But everything else with the Xplorer option, besides the dual pane windows, and I do like the light Explorer color paint scheme, but that's a personal choice. I didn't really see the value in the other items, but I'll do separate videos on replacing all of the solar. Hate to do it, but I had to do it on the Winnebago, and I might as well do it on this one as well. And then repair of the caulking, I'll do that as a complete different video as well. And then eventually I'll get around to all the fixes that I've already done. I've filmed all of it, but just never had the motivation to edit all those videos. I have months and months of videos of repairs that I've done, but I just have not put those together. But I think it would be helpful for some other people to make these fixes. But that's it. My overall opinion, would I buy it again? I like the floor plan. I don't think I made a mistake on it. Only mistake I had it was probably timing wise is, no, I wouldn't buy it again at that price. As you know, today the discounts are becoming more and more every day, but I don't think that's going to last long. I'm thinking maybe springtime, it's pretty much going to be over. But if you can get this for a big discount and just live with, we'll call it, some of these imperfections, I think it's still a pretty solidly built RV itself. There's definitely no perfect RV out there. But for the price point, I think it serves its purpose. But yes, I would buy it again, just at a bigger discount rate. And now that the availability is a lot more, I think the buyer definitely has a lot more leverage. But that's my 6-month review. Again, I didn't really want to do a 6-month review. I wanted to wait at least a year, but we do use the RV much more than the average person. So at 6 months, I think it's a fair assessment of my opinions. And I think we used it enough to work out all the bugs on this thing. But that's my 2 cents. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you on the next video.